Hey y'all, it's Renegade, and in today's video, we're about to get real as we spill the real tea behind our thoughts on how RuPaul's Drag Race All Stars 9 should have gone. Now, obviously, this video series has been triggered by all of the goops and gaggery of that season finale that led to the surprise crowning of Angeria Paris Van Michaels. And if you listened to my channel before, you'll know not only I, but the rest of my co-casters are clearly a bunch of messy, opinionated bitches with absolutely no drag or entertainment experience whatsoever, which makes us the perfect choice to give our true feelings on the season and how things would have gone if we were judging the season instead of RuPaul. And I'd just like to preface all of this by saying there is absolutely no shade intended here. Angeria is the rightful winner of All Stars 9, and nothing takes that away from her. But as viewers, we all have our own opinions and thoughts on how the competition should have gone down, both from a factual performance standard, as well from the point of view of the narrative that we were given. As Candy Muse stated, it's RuPaul's Drag Race at the end of the day, and ultimately, RuPaul's making the final decision. It's up to you to please Mother Ru, and ultimately her favorite is gonna win. But if we take that production rigor out of the picture and go based on our standards, who would be crowned the Queen of Charity? Well, it's time to find out. But before we get into all the stars, styles, and shady as fuck moments of the season, let me introduce my beautiful benefactress co-hostess with the mostest, QuackrrJack. Jack, are you ready to talk about All Stars 9 for the last time, hopefully, and ready to put this all behind us at this point?
I mean, I'm not saying it's going to be the last time we talk about All Stars 9 or reference it, but the last time we do a full on video about it, hopefully. And I think I'm ready. I think I'm ready to discuss this, have this conversation, lay it all on the table, and, come away from this with a conclusion as to why maybe this crowning may have been seen as controversial in a lot of fans' opinions, and talk about maybe the shared opinions that we have or the differences in opinions we have from RuPaul and production standpoints at least.
And I don't think any opinion is wrong at the end of the day. Everybody here is talented, but did they get the winner right? That's what we're gonna find out here, and I hope everybody is very excited for this little experiment because I know I am. I know you are probably here too, Jack. But why don't you give us a brief rundown here on how things are gonna work out here today?
Okay, so today we are going to go over each single challenge, aka episode of All Stars 9, and we're going to talk about the challenge, who we thought was the top two, maybe mention as a collective who we felt were up for the top two placements. And then after we discuss it and decide who we think should be the top two, Renegade will go ahead and talk about the lip sync, who would have won said lip sync, and who they would have used the red snippers on, and would it have actually affected the outcome, unlike what actually happened in All Stars 9.
Yes, we do have to take into account the Ruby snippers here. Unfortunately, it is just something that, it's part of the All Stars 9 format, so we gotta adhere to it. There might be a little conjecture here and there, and obviously we won't know exactly how these people felt at the time. But, I feel like we made our best guesses based off of how they kind of reacted in the season and kind of some clues that we got in the edit, at least from what we were shown here. So, feel like we had a pretty good accurate outcome of what would probably happen here. And to be honest, I feel like we have a way better season than what we got here. But let's go ahead and get into it. Let's not waste any time and get right into episode 1, Drag Queens Save the World. Now, in their first maxi challenge of the season, the queens were challenged to write and perform a lip sync verse in the show's main anthem. And I think it's pretty agreed upon here that there's a pretty clear top 4. Angeria, Gorgeous, Plastique, and Vanjie, I think were the ones that got the most praise out of pretty much everybody in this group here. But Jack, let's break down what our thoughts were on this top 2, and would Angeria and Georges have gotten the win if we were judging?
So let's talk about it. I would like to say, first and foremost, that this challenge is the first, I don't want to say rigging, but the first time that we see a very questionable choice of who ends up in the top. As we see, Georges does do a really good job. She's one of the main choreographers, or the main choreographer of the whole performance. Not only does she do a great job choreographing the whole thing for everyone, she does an amazing job in the performance. She rightfully earns her spot in the top two. I think everyone can kind of agree on that one. Even if you don't think she was the top two, you probably believe that she was at least top three. As a collective, we decided that we thought it was Plastique, Georges, and Vanjie as the top three, and eventually we came down to the conclusion that it was Plastique because her verse was one of the only good ones, and it was outstanding performance wise. One of the only things you remember from the song that you remember positively, plus Georges in the top two. So Plastique and Georges being our top two of the week, I don't think there's much controversy there. Um, as far as Angeria goes, her lyrics weren't especially memorable and they weren't especially great. The performance was okay, but it relied almost solely on the look of the backup dancers around her acting as a throne in the beginning. But even Katya herself was like, this verse is painful to my ears. The song, I think it was a little rough compared to a lot of other songs we've seen on Drag Race, but I think two things we can all agree on is that Plastique and Georges were really great. And also shout out to Vanjie for being a really great option as well. Unfortunately, we just felt like Georges and Plastique were a little bit better at hitting some of the moves, staying in character, really just giving us their all during this episode.
Totally agree. I think for sure Georges and Plastiques were the standouts. Angeria, I think you hit it right on the head, was just helped a lot by the staging for her performance, and I don't think the lyrics were that great from my point of view. Same thing kind of for Vanjie. I don't know if Vanjie had the most memorable lyrics, but I think Vanjie's energy was just really good. For me, Georges, Plastique definitely hit the mark on all three or five, whatever six categories they were trying to go for here. So, obviously, I definitely think we're in agreement here. Georges and Plastique absolutely take the win, get the first badges of the season, and this sets us off on a very different trajectory if this is how things go here, which is kind of very interesting to kind of look into here. But we get our first lip sync of the season to Whitney Houston's $1 Million Bill, and I think again we're in complete agreement is that sadly Plastique is just not the strongest lip syncer, and while I do think this likely could be one of her stronger performances, Georges was just incredibly close to Injiri in the initial run of this lip sync, so I don't really think Plastique would be able to embody the song any better than Georges, since they're both pretty young. Just based off of just their pure talent alone, Georges feels like she would win this without a doubt. As far as it comes to the Ruby Snippers, Georges mentioned numerous times in the edit, especially in the premiere, how strong she thought Nina West was from the jump, and how she had the scissors, that was her target, so it seems pretty clear from our perspective that if Georges was holding these Ruby Snippers for the first time, that they would go to Nina West, getting the first snip snip of the season. That takes us to episode 2, the paintball, where the queens served 3 looks in this season's ball, which, side note, one of the best balls we've ever had, outside of one individual. Our 3 categories were Monochromatica, Drag Imitates Art, and Paintball Eleganza. Obviously, in this point, Nina West snipping makes no difference here since, well, we saw what happened here, didn't we, Jack?
Unfortunately, we did all see that. As far as what happened here in the ball, Nina just wasn't able to. This wasn't Nina's challenge. Let's just put it like that. A design challenge was not Nina's strength. Therefore, the red snippers didn't really affect anything. But what we did see was some amazing looks from almost every other queen. And what was really interesting was that in the paintball, we actually had a really easy top three. I don't think anyone can deny that our top three was clearly between Plastic, Gottmik, and Roxy. Now, in the original version, Plastic and Gottmik are given the win. And as it stands, I think we can all agree that that is a completely fair judging as it is. Roxy did a great job, but I can see where some people may prefer some of the designs over the others, and therefore we stuck with the Plastic and Gottmik still winning because at the end of the day, they all did amazing jobs, and it really would feel like it would be criminal to take away really any choice like this when the queens all did so well. So Plastique and Gottmik still stay up in the top two, and therefore they would end up in the lip sync that we did see already.
We did see that lip sync. So not much in this timeline will change as far as that goes either. Here, our jump in line lip sync is won by Gottmik, easily beating. Well, I shouldn't say easily beating Plastique. Beating Plastique. And I based off of the Ruby Snipper's decision in the first, during her first run here, Gottmik gave the Snippers to Angie, mostly for her being the queen that won the first challenge. So it stands to reason that Gottmik would give the Ruby Snippers to Georges, given she was the premier frontrunner at this point. So Plastique will head into this being our new frontrunner with 2 badges, while Gottmik and Georges now have 1. Although Georges is snip snipped. On to episode 3, Snatch Game of Love, where the queens impersonate celebrities while attempting to find romance with a mysterious bachelor. And in this, we have 4 tops here, which I think are pretty clearly decided among fandom as well here too. We have Angeria as Marla Gibbs, Gottmik as Pal the Dog, aka Lassie, Nina and Chanel, both playing Liberace. But there can only be 2 winners. Jack, who did we decide was in our top out of this group?
I think it's very apparent that the top two should just stay the same. It's Gottmik and Nina. There's like a landslide here of how much better they did than everyone else in Snatch Game. Though I feel like there were good performances from other people, we clearly saw that Gottmik and Nina like rose above everyone else. There was some controversy from some people feeling like Gottmik maybe shouldn't get the win because she plays a character that essentially doesn't really exist. But we've seen it before. We've given wins to people who have characters that don't exist or don't have like a personality attached to them. So why not? Why not give Gottmik the right to get the win on here? So Gottmik and Nina end up being our top two, as Nina does one of the greatest performances in a Snatch game we've ever seen, and Gottmik really proves herself as a Snatch game comedian since she did so well in both of her performances here.
Definitely agree here. And as great as their performances were in the Snatch game, that's how epically bad the shenanigans were that happened in this lip sync.
Oh,
Obviously, nothing will change here. Sadly, this timeline will unfortunately still have to deal with this banana lip sync where Nina just decides to shed her. uh, I don't even want to talk about this. Gottmik gets the win. And being that she now has the most number of badges, it seems pretty clear at this point, given that she now has, 2 chances to cut people off. She's probably going to cut off someone else who also has a large number of badges. Being that Plastique is now vulnerable with also 2 badges, it seems pretty clear Gottmik's move here would be to give those ruby snippers to Plastique. So, Gottmik will now have 2 badges and the only possibility of being the frontrunner going into episode 4. Georges, Nina have 1, while Plastique has 2. She also has the snip snip. Takes us to episode 4, where prior to the Maxi Challenge, our prior challenge winners are able to gift badges to a queen of their choice. And since not much is really different here in this timeline other than Angeria now not having a badge, it would make sense for Gottmik to still give her badge to Vanjie as her BFF, while Nina would still likely give her badge to Roxy as a sign of respect. This week's Maxi Challenge, though, feels like it's one of the biggest blips in the multiverse timeline when it comes to the Smokin' Hot Firefighter Makeovers Challenge, because for this one, there is a pretty clear top 2 of Georges and Plastique with their Powerpuff Girl inspired looks, and the eventual challenge winners, Roxy and Vanjie. However, it seems like the fandom was a little bit in an uproar as a result of this episode, and it seems like if you really look at the timeline, this episode makes a huge difference as to how people will ultimately perform based on the results of this challenge. Jack, let's name our thoughts here on the top 2.
okay. So the top two here is clearly a race between Roxy and Plastique and I'm sorry, Roxy and Vanjie and Georges and Plastique. When going into this, you are looking at a makeover where it is supposed to be a girls group. You're supposed to be recognizable. You're supposed to match. You are supposed to look very similar. Therefore, these are the only two groups that can be considered for the top two, and it's not close. Now, between these two groups, it is a very tight race. I think initially what we all said on the podcast before was that we had a favorite of it being going to Roxy and Vanjie because we felt like their makeover was a little bit more difficult and it was a little bit more successful when it came to the cohesion of their group, especially when it came to who they were working with. Because when you look at the teams and who they were paired with, it would have been a much harder task to work with a father who is very stiff, who has very little rhythm. Now, I'm not saying that to say anything mean, but we can all agree that clearly their firefighter was a little struggle bussin' when it came to any type of dancing. That being said, clearly their firefighter really got involved and really was having a good time. Now, when we look over at Georges and Plastique, their group's firefighter was ready at the moment. She was like already turning it before the makeover. So when we see the makeover happen, she really looks like she could be one of the contestants here on the show. She's embodying everything going on. She is completely in it fully with this performance. The only thing that could sway this decision is really about what you think is most important. Is it more important that you look so similar to each other, or is it more important that you do a better performance? So at this point, we decided to actually give it to Georges and Plastique just to see how this would affect things. And it is such a close race that there is not a wrong choice here. Like, I don't think there's a wrong opinion on these top two. So in this timeline, we're giving Georges and Plastique the double win here, which means they'll be actually lip syncing to Black Cat.
So you'll notice something in our timeline. The ruby snippers actually make a difference, y'all, because look at this. Plastique gets cut off. Gasp. Y'all wanted this twist to matter, and look, it got your girl, Plastique. But you're welcome, production. If you did the correct thing from the jump, you could have gotten some drama and some intrigue. But I also understand why this win ultimately goes to Roxy and Vanjie, and again, we could talk about that a little bit later in our epilogue of the video, since I think from this perspective, it will make things a lot more clear. But let's go back to this Black Cat lip sync, y'all, because if you want to go back to how they did it on the show, Roxy and Vanjie were given a double win here. Now, this lip sync between Georges and Plastique really could go in a multitude of different ways, but much like our first lip sync of the season, it still feels like Plastique would probably lose here. But again, I would like to make the case that since they originally tied in the initial lip sync on the show, they would probably do the exact same thing here. So, in this timeline, guess what? Plastique gets a shared lip sync win. Ooh, I can hear y'all in the comments going, what? But no, it makes sense. We're going with what they did on the show, and double win, double win. So, narratively, things also feel like they come together here as well, since now the only other queen with two badges, as well as the person who snipped both of these two queens the weeks prior, Gottmik, is now the person who receives the ruby snippers. And look at that. Our first 4 episodes just narratively come together so good. Ooh, I love that. Just if they were to just do the right thing. Imagine that production. Imagine. Whoops. Okay, moving on. Let's start at episode 5, and Jack, how about you run through the badges where everybody stands here at this point?
Okay, badge count is looking like we have Georges, Gottmik, and Plastique all at 2 badges. Currently, Gottmik is cut off from getting a badge. We have Roxy, Nina, and Vanjie all having 1 badge, meaning that Chanel and Angeria are the only 2 at the start of episode 5 who do not have badges.
Gasp. And I will say things as far as last episode, things got a little crazy. You know, we changed the complete winners of the challenges here, but I think for the next few episodes here, things kind of get back on track for a little bit. In episode five's Property Queens Challenge, they're tested the ability to work in duos and create synergy in a dragged up real estate commercial for an obscure location like Gator Leads Florida or Frosty Bits Alaska. The winner here is pretty obvious, although most every other team did pretty solid other than Gottmik and Georges. Winners were the Dolls, Plastique, and Roxy, who have the obvious standout performance of this week. I don't think there's any question here, right? That at all, Jack?
There is no question on who would have won this challenge. It is. I know that people have different opinions, but an opinion can be wrong. Unfortunately, in this timeline and every other timeline, if these are the same exact teams that were formed, which we're going with, then you know we've seen the performance and how it goes, and one of them is leagues above the others. Now that does have some open interpretation if the groups weren't the exact same because of maybe some of the cutting that's been going on. But based on a lot of the other factors in the season, it's plausible that they might stay the same. And in this reality, they do. So Roxy and Plastique end up as our top two, and they lip sync to Super Freaky Girl. As we know, there was some controversy around not the correct version of the song being used and different than what they heard. So we've got kind of a questionable lip sync, but it's probably going to have the exact same outcome as the original episode.
Yeah, I think in this timeline too, they probably still screw them over with not telling them which version of the song they're getting. So, Roxy will definitely win here. And given that the only girls that haven't been cut off yet at this point don't have a badge other than Vanjie, who hasn't really won a challenge yet in this reality, it would seem like Roxy would probably make the fair decision to cut off the person who has the most badges. So, in this situation, she's going to be cutting off Georges. But honestly, this week, I don't think the snippers would really come into play regardless. And you'll see that next episode. Now, episode 6 introduces the second charity badge in the Straw Poll Mini Challenge, where the girls basically play touchy subjects from Survivor meets majority roles from Big Brother, as they attempt to get the queens to guess the majority opinion on drag race superlatives. Georges does the best at reading the competition and earns her third badge, and kind of funny in this timeline, she wouldn't be able to win the Maxi Challenge here since she's snipped, but she still gets a badge due to this twist. And, you know, we're just going to give her the badge here again, right, Jag? I don't think there's any questioning this, that she would probably win this again. I don't think there's any way we would know who could possibly win it, so let's just give her the badge,
No,
right?
I think it's impossible to think that her answers would change that much.
Yeah, it's one of the things about this run through where it's like, we don't really know, but we can't really say. We don't really have any other opinions. So we're going to go with it. Why not? So we also have this episode's Maxi Challenge, the National Drag Convention Roast. And for us, there was a pretty clear top four of Angeria, Georges, Plastique, and Roxy, with honorable mention Bob the Drag Queen. But, Jack, who was our top two?
So I think we're gonna keep it the same as Plastique and Angeria. Really, everyone did an amazing job in our top four here, but it's hard to choose and pick little things here or there. Based on the criteria for the roast, it seems that Angeria and Plastique are the correct choices. At least, even in production's eyes, this is probably the way that you should place the roast, since here's a queen that has risen up to the top again who doesn't have a badge. This is a great moment for this, and it's a real breakout moment for Plastique to once again be showing a strength in this competition, because she did do so well especially on a challenge where she wasn't expected to do well. And actually, almost all of the girls in the top four were the girls who everyone was most worried for the most part. So it was a very refreshing thing to see girls who weren't necessarily considered having the greatest comedy chops to immediately be in the top four this week.
So here we are, Plastique, her fifth challenge win, her fourth badge of our season here with Angeria getting her first. We saw how this lip sync to Be My Lover went here with Plastique, again, not knowing the words to another rap song, so Angeria takes the win in this reality as well. With Plastique unable to be cut off again since she has the top 2 immunity, it would only seem to reason that once again Angie would cut off the doll, Roxy Andrews, given that she hasn't been cut off and is tied for the next most amount of badges. So rather than episode 1, our Angie versus Roxy arc would start right now. So that brings us to episode 7, where we get the meeting in the ladies' room acting challenge. And Nina gets immunity from being cut off in the mini challenge, but I don't think it really matters here at the end of the day. But Jack, go ahead and tell us about why this challenge was kind of difficult to end up ultimately critiquing.
So episode 7 is is a acting challenge scripted for each queen to have their own different scene with RuPaul, and therefore it becomes a little difficult to judge them against each other because some people's scripts are just going to be better than others, regardless of how fair you try to make it. But on top of that, I don't think really anyone enjoyed this episode per se. It was a very rough watch, I think, for most viewers. I think we all kind of agreed that this was like a questionable challenge and a very questionable choice just in general for the show to make. I don't know if this has something to do with like the writer's strike or anything going on, but um, we see the top 2 are given to Angeria and Nina, and we decided after rewatching that it probably just makes sense production wise to at least keep this top 2. Both these queens are known for being funny. They're pretty good actors, and it's strange because even when we see them doing the scenes with RuPaul and maybe not doing everything they were told or how they were given the instruction, it makes sense that these 2 win, and then we start to get badge counts coming closer together as opposed to this huge difference between them. So with Angie and Nina winning, we see 2 people who only have 1 badge both getting a second badge, and now there's more of a race of who's going to get to that top spot. And again, we'll get the exact same lip sync to Lover Girl, which is just another kind of unfortunate moment in this episode, which is what I think maybe why we're all like, this episode is just not something you want to really spend time on.
You know what? We're about to be controversial as fuck here, y'all. We're giving Nina the win here. Okay,
Oh,
okay, I can't even say that with a straight face. Well, first off, I'm gay, so there's no way I can do that to begin with. But no, we can't say this. Angeria gets her second lip sync win in a row, and now this week is actually a very kind of interesting Ruby Snipper week because this is the week where Plastique infamously sold her strategy to not cut off frontrunners. So it would stand to reason that Angeria could likely cut off someone closer to her badge count to save herself. This could mean either Gottmik or Georges or even Roxy again possibly could be vulnerable. However, just feels like more an Angeria move, especially in this reality where Miss Plastique has 4 badges, that this argument would be a lot less effective since Plastique has such a huge lead on everybody else at this point. So it just feels right to us that with nowhere to hide here, Angeria decides to cut off our frontrunner for the second time in this fake season. We are now at episode 8, Make Your Own Kind of Rusic, where the queens are challenged to create an outfit based on a RuPaul song. And again, for the 4th episode in a row, there really isn't any dispute from us as to who the top 2 is this week, right?
no, definitely not. When you're looking at it, the make your own music design, you could maybe question that would the order differ in who gets to choose their like their box and what song they get of the materials. You might be able to make a case for that, but it's so unrealistic to think we could know that. So we're sticking with the same order. Everyone gets the same exact category. And if we're going off the basis of looks, there's only 2 designs that stand miles above the rest, and it's Roxy and Plastic. It's the exact same winning. Though I will give a shout out to Nina, who did a great job this week, which is a surprise to everyone, especially based on the last design challenge where we saw a crash and burn. To I don't know. if it's golden boot worthy or if we have to like maybe make a platinum or diamond boot to accept it. I'm not sure,
Maybe
but
a double diamond boot?
a double diamond boot, sure. I mean, one for the wig, one for the outfit. um, you could bring one for the designs that were brought on the runway in general. Whatever. But so in this episode, it's a clear top two between Roxy and Plastique, and we will once again see the infamous lip sync that really set a tone for this season.
No one gets the prize. Well, actually, in this case, Plastique doesn't get the prize because, again, for the second time in our fake season, the Ruby Snippers matter. Look at us, production. Look at us. Our fake season is so much better than yours. That's all I'm gonna say. Anyway, Plastique gets cut off from getting the badge while Roxy gets her third badge of the season and yet another lip sync win. And also, what is amazing about this as well here too is since this is the very, very last Ruby snippering of the season, which ultimately I don't think will matter here anyway, it is nice for a narrative situation here that we get Roxy to be able to get her revenge on Angeria for the final time, just as the very last time you could snip someone out. So Angie, unfortunately, will be going into the Rusical cutoff once again. Now, these last few episodes obviously sort of make or break the season, and on All Stars 9, you could sort of tell that some queens were getting preferential treatment based off of storylines. In episode 9, Rosemarie's baby shower, the Rusical, definitely felt like one of those times where badges may have been handed out to fulfill some narrative moments. I'm not going to say they were completely, but questionable. Again, don't get me wrong. Almost everybody in this Rusical was absolutely amazing, and this is by far one of the best Rusicals we've ever seen. But we do have to be a bit nitpicky here, and I do think this is a great case to begin our discussion on Miss Chanel. We literally haven't talked about this whole entire video yet, and I just want to say I absolutely love Chanel. Much like she was the first queen to walk into the workroom all those years ago, Chanel was the first queen I got to meet at DragCon, and I will say there's a strong case for Chanel to win this challenge, as she did an amazing job from start to finish. But much as I love our Queen of Christmas here, and I could just feel her ripping up my invitation to the Christmas party as we speak here. I just don't think we could say Chanel's win was completely deserved, especially when it feels like most of her part was tied into Angeria's performance, who I don't feel like Angeria did the strongest here. So I just don't know if we can make a case for her as much as we can make a case for our top three: Georges, Roxy, and Vanjie.
It may be a little controversial to take Chanel out of the top for here because, the girl doesn't have a badge and it feels kind of bad, right? But here's the thing. In the Rusical, it is clear to everyone that Georges hits a moment that it will not be forgotten. Like, people loved Georges's. I think as a community, we can all come together and agree 100%, regardless of anything else going on, that Georges really stole this competition or this specific challenge when she started doing all of her robotic like movements and really figured out how to get this working, specifically as the Megan character. So Georges is clearly in our top. Now, between Roxy and Vanjie, we're looking at two really strong performances here. I think why we choose Roxy to win here over Vanjie is because of the risk and the choice that Roxy makes to use this like grumbly, weird voice. Plus, in the performance itself, there were many people who were like, "Who is that queen up there? Like that's doing that?" People didn't know it was Roxy doing the the Pennywise character because they weren't sure because of how well the performance was and the makeup around it. Even the guest judge had something to say about it. So we in this choice, we went to go with Roxy and Georges as our top two, as opposed to the Georges and Chanel top two. And Vanjie gets like an honorable mention. Love you. It's just unfortunately at times, you know, she does an amazing job, but sometimes there's a little bit of a reliance on the Vanjieisms, if you will. and therefore it's not as much of a commitment to the character. Plus, when we're looking at how the queens stay in character during the challenge, Roxy has to stay in character more often because Vanjie comes in at the end of the Rusical. But that being said, we still have an amazing Rusical. Everyone did an amazing job, and then we get a new uh, top two for this lip sync, which would be just phenomenal.
I don't know if it would be that phenomenal because it's still that terrible Kristen W song. But
Well,
you know, ultimately, lip sync won't matter this episode. Since the Ruby Snippers don't matter anymore, and because likely what happens again, both queens are going to be given a lip sync win here, and this builds up a little bit more suspense for the Georges and Roxy face off that will happen in the Lalaparuza episode, next episode. But as you remember here, the ultimate prize for winning was not only a badge for you, but a badge for someone else. So Georges and Roxy also get to give out badges here, with Georges feeling like she's going to do the same thing like she did on the show by giving Chanel her first badge. And it seems like Roxy could possibly also give Chanel a badge at this point. It seems like Roxy's thing, though, has always been, you know, an eye for an eye, or if you help me, I'll help you. So it definitely feels like Roxy would be repaying the favor here from Nina earlier this season and giving her her extra badge. So we go into episode 10 with Georges, Plastique, and Roxy all tied with 4 badges. Nina, now with 3 badges, Angeria, Gottmik at 2 badges, and Chanel and Vanjie with 1. Now this takes us to episode 10's Lip Sync Lalaparuza Smackdown, and if production would have just waited for one more episode, we really could have got the Chanel redemption arc that she truly deserved, because there really is no question who ate this challenge for us, right, Jack?
no, there's definitely there's nothing that could be said about this challenge. Every single winner of every single lip sync was correct on this challenge. It's not even a question. There's no argument to be had. So, if they had waited and made this like the final performance leading up to the badges, we could have gotten ourselves. This would have been the greatest way to do the extra badge counts, where if every lip sync you won, you get an extra badge. Could have really felt better than just giving away 3 badges on the final random challenge.
Production, we're looking at you. Well, heading into our season finale, which in our universe, both episodes are going to air on the same date, mind you. Our beautiful Benebastric badges are as follows, in alphabetical order: Angeria, 2 badges; Gottmik, 2 badges; Georges, 4 badges; Nina, 3 badges; Plastique, 4 badges; Roxy, 5 badges; Chanel, 2 badges; and Vanjie, 1 badge. But it's beautiful. Now, if things haven't been messy before, well, this season finale absolutely complicates everything, as the multiple twists allow for any of our 8 queens with a possibility of getting to this finale. As we know on the show, the double diamond was voted on by the queens prior to their final challenge, where the recipient would have a major advantage as their badge count would be immediately doubled. While we won't find out who this queen is, however, until after the talent show, which means there's a strong likelihood that, just like how the season was, that the twist ends up completely irrelevant, since there are ways at this point for the queens to just render it completely useless by voting for the queen with highest badge count, who is already guaranteed to make the finale, which at this point would still be Roxy Andrews with her 5 badges, or by voting for the queen with the least amount of badges with the worst chance of winning the talent show, which at this point would be Vanjie, who, in this universe, has 1 badge, which was handed to her by Gottmik and wasn't even truly earned. And while there's always the case that the girls could give it to Nina, I do think a lot of that goodwill to return the favor from some queens like Roxy would have been paid forward in this timeline as Roxy gives Nina a badge here, so I do think we're in agreement that more than likely Vanjie now receives this power, and she's going into this finale not having won a challenge, but winning a double diamond, which would mean that Vanjie would now have a huge chance at making a huge splash in the grand finale variety extravaganza, where, unfortunately, we still have the other game breaking twist of the winner receiving 3 badges and a guaranteed spot in the finale. But despite being in the top 3 for us in this talent show, and there being a very, very, very strong case here for a Vanjie win, as she was extremely captivating, charming, and comedic throughout her flawless performance, I think we're in agreement that there were a stronger top 2 that would have won for us in this talent show. But, Jack, get into our thoughts here about everybody from the top in this talent show here, because this is a game changing episode.
Okay, yeah. So the top four, I think everyone can kind of agree on as a community in this talent show were probably Plastique, Chanel, Vanjie, and Georges. As far as that goes, a lot of people did the exact same talent, right? It was a lip sync to an original song, and some people did some dancing, some people did some fun other talents. Some people kind of stood in spots and just did their performance. Um, everyone had a good talent. It was just when you come to this talent show, it becomes so stale because almost everyone starts to do the exact same talents, and then they just sprinkle something on there that feels like them, right? And so that's where we feel like the top four is easily Plastique, Chanel, Georges, and Vanjie. Georges and Vanjie both do extremely well dance numbers. I think we both agreed, though, that Vanjie is number 3 because her dance routine was so much more lively throughout the whole thing, I would say. Georges's big moment is right at the end, whereas Vanjie had us kind of on the edge of our seats because she kept doing these reveals. She was making a joke at Michelle about these leotards. It was really funny. And that leads us to our last two, who do end up being our top 2, Plastique and Chanel. I think without a doubt, we can all agree that if anyone deserved to win a talent show, it should have been Chanel's juggling and her ability to not only juggle the clubs, but also the knives. She was juggling knives, and then she balanced a box on her face, on her chin. It was really fun to watch. It was very different. It was the most unique talent easily. So she really deserves a place in the top 2 here. And then I will also say the production value of Plastiques was so amazing. Not only was the production value great, the performance itself, her moves were clean, her song was fun. I mean, come on. Sparkler titties with a marshmallow at the end. That was talent. It was serious but funny, and it was badass, but so girly pop diva of her. I can't help but to feel like this is the correct top 2 that we should have seen here. And what's great is it kind of rounds out this Chanel arc in a way of giving her her redemption. And if we had put maybe Vanjie or Georges here, that would have also been a great storyline. If Vanjie had won here, she gets 3 additional badges plus the double diamond, automatically sailing her into a shocking twist where she ends up in the top 3 from 0 wins all season long, which would have, shook the whole competition. So then we end up with Plastique and Chanel, though, each getting 3 more badges, meaning our top 3 is then officially locked in as Plastique with 7, Chanel with 5 badges, and Roxy with 5 badges. Georges falls just short with 4 badges, Nina with 3, and everyone else would have 2 badges right now because Vanjie's 1 badge would be doubled to 2 with a double diamond.
Yes, so sadly in this timeline, Vanjie, despite being one of my absolute all-time favorite queens, I love her so much, words cannot express, but sadly she does not win one challenge in this reality and goes winless in 3 seasons, which really, I understand why this didn't happen in real life, because Vanjie is so damn talented that I'm okay with the 2 victories she had on the show, so now you'll see why the Makeover's win was clearly much more for Vanjie than it was for Roxy, but now, the other thing that is kind of clear, at least for us, is that Angeria's win seems questionable because despite her having some extremely strong performances, I do think her season premiere win ultimately puts her on a trajectory for the finale and the win, whereas the same thing would have happened to a queen like Plastique Tiara when this reality becomes the true Angeria. But Unlike Angeria, Plastique felt like a much more earned winner in the talent show, and let's not forget in this reality, she has also survived having a badge cut from her not just once, but twice, and is still the front runner heading into this finale again with 7 badges against her fellow doll Roxy Andrews with 5, and Chanel, who makes that late game run with 5 badges to lock in her spot in this iconic final 3. Now, Georges ultimately becomes the biggest loser in this scenario, given that she does have 3 wins, which is one more overall win than Chanel had. But let's be real, Georges and also Angie and Vanjie to the same extent are still young and have so much time for multiple season returns. But I feel like if this was the ultimate result here, they would have such a strong arc if they wish to return in the future, which narratively just feels much more correct all around for us. And why I thought production was going to go in a much different direction for this crowning overall. So, when it comes to crowning a queen, for me, the only question is, as this is a charity season, especially one that had 2, 3, multiple strong performers all season long, should or should it not end with a double crowning? Jack, I'm going to give you the ultimate decision here. What are our arguments for our top three's win, and who will take the crown?
Okay, so it's kind of hard to decide what is the best way to crown someone at the end because there's the track record, there's the lip sync performances, there is the runways, how well you played the game. Like there are a lot of factors to take into this. If we look at the facts, every single lip sync that Roxy Andrews has been a part of, she has been the winner, making her the not only the best lip syncer of the season, but even in the reality of what actually happened on All Stars 9, she has never lost a lip sync period. She is now the most lip synced winner of all time on Drag Race. So she gets a point here. Plastique has been doing an amazing job throughout the whole season. In this world, Plastique gets 7 challenge wins. There are 11 challenges essentially this season. She has won 7 of them, been blocked twice, still ends up with one of the most amount of badges, actually the most amount of badges in the competition. Though Roxy has 4 wins, it and technically she has more badges before the final talent show badges. Plastique still has 7 wins overall and 7 badges. Chanel, on the other hand, is a late bloomer. She has 2 challenge wins, but has the same amount of badges as Roxy. Now, this is kind of good for her to propel her to the top 3, but without actually winning the final lip sync, it's difficult to say that Chanel ever had a chance. So, unfortunately, we don't really see this final Janet Jackson song as being something that Chanel is going to really take home. So it's going to be an obvious Chanel third place here, right? She has the least amount of challenge wins of the top 3. She is tied for less badges than Plastique. So it just kind of makes sense. On the runway, we've had some great looks. I think ultimately most people agreed that this season has been like plastic season of runways plus Got Mick, but seeing that Got Mick is not in the top 3, it's Plastique who wins on the runway. Now, this leads us to that final problem where if we're not taking into account the track record because the track record is supposed to decide the top 3, the final lip sync song might be the thing that decides the the reality of the situation. Here's the problem with that though. If everything's based upon a lip sync, also in reality, it's clear that the wrong winner was chosen in All Stars 9. So we kind of have to balance this idea of the final lip sync with the track record. So what makes most sense to us would be since this is a charity season and no one's really receiving the money but the great causes, it only makes sense to make this an actual double crowning where Roxy Andrews is crowned for her amazing legacy she has throughout Drag Race and her lip syncing performance and even the respect that she has garnered in the outside world from the rest of the queens and everyone else who performs and works with her all the time. Another chance here for Plastique is she's done the best in the competition overall. She's had an amazing runway package. She might not be the strongest performer, but it's clear that she has consistently probably been the best performer of all season, regardless of who's in the top or bottom. So it just makes sense that Plastique and Roxy are double crown dolls together of All Stars 9. It makes sense that the two Dollage representatives are clearly the winners of All Stars 9. And therefore, we would see two more queens being inducted into the Hall of Fame for All Stars and giving the opportunity to give two charities both $200,000.
Us in this reality, our queens, Plastic Tiara and Roxy Andrews, get their rightful crowns. It feels correct. Don't know about y'all, but it feels very correct here. As far as we're concerned here, both these competitors impressed us all season long. Plastique may not have been the strongest lip syncer, but she is so strong in every other aspect. As being a queen, it's just hard to justify why she was so overlooked here. And at the same time, too, Roxy proves to be such a timeless entertainer, and I'm just so glad if she doesn't leave with a real crown, she leaves with the title of the most undefeated lip sync assassin of them all. And I could say anything. I think this podcast showcases the prime problem with All Stars 9. This over the top, convoluted piece of crap benefactor's badge twist. Don't get me wrong, I love point system when it's fair. But when you go full Tyra Banks and turn your competition into an arbitrary scoring system, and then insert Mario Party rules on how many badges each challenge is worth, or whether or not queens get a badge to give away, or then, oh wait, you could just get them from mini challenges, but then other mini challenges we're going to give immunity, RuPaul, pick a lane, girl. If you need someone to help you format these things better, please comment below, girl, or DM me, because y'all need some help. There is absolutely no consistency or logic at all to having a double diamond twist when you're giving away 69 badges in the talent show. And dear Lord, just please let the producers have learned from all these mistakes, because when it comes down to it, a group of extremely talented queens are now having to face a lot of blowback for simply being involved in all this stupidity. But since it's in the name of charity, we're just gonna say love. And let's also be real here for a second. We're all gonna come back for All Stars 10 regardless how we feel here. It's a TV show at the end of the day, so let's just all be nice, enjoy the amazing content that the queens have provided here, and not be a dick to people on the internet because it's easy. Jack, do you have any final words to wrap up All Stars 9 here for us today?
I think it's clear that All Stars 9 was kind of a fail overall. Like, there was a great idea, a great cast. We had some pretty good challenges overall. There was just a few things that didn't seem to work out, and the season became way too produced. And because the season became too produced, it didn't become very real. It didn't become something that we could just enjoy. And there were challenges where it was clear that there was just too much rigging going on, and the whole season kind of gets that negative context to it because it feels like the season was rigged. It does feel like the season was just given at the last second to someone else because they could do it, not like what should happen. But again, it's like we said at the start. It's RuPaul's Drag Race. RuPaul decides at the end who gets the win, whether we consider it to be justified or the correct crowning. It is a TV show, and RuPaul does have the final say.
And let's be real, we wouldn't be here without RuPaul, so thank you, Mother, we love you, even though we might talk shit at times.
Everyone got an opinion, just like assholes.
We do, and some of them stink, but if you thought ours stunk, oh well, because this is our opinion. But if you agree, or if you have things that you would like to change, or if you would like to put your opinion decisions below, please comment, because we would love to spill some tea with y'all on all your decisions on what your thoughts were on what you would have changed here. Make sure that you hit that like and subscribe button because it lets us know what kind of content you guys want to see. And again, y'all, we will be back all season long because guess what, y'all? Drag Race is not over. Canada versus the World 2 is still going on. Global All Stars starts in a week. So we still have so much Drag Race to talk about. And who knows, maybe we'll start Drag Race Philippines too, because that just started this week here too. I think that just started today. So holy crap, y'all. Anyways, y'all. Just don't ask us for any more All Stars 9 content. We're spent for a while. On behalf of Jack, y'all, I'm Renegade, and this was the real tea. We will see y'all next time to spill some more. And until then, stay safe. Take care. Bye.
Wait, you ain't doing an All Stars 9 short on who best winner looks or best looks from the final runway?
Oh my God! Shut up! Shut up! Stop now.
Okay. Bye.